Great, so now we are recording. And we're live, we figured it out, yay. Well, welcome everyone, to anyone who's watching or will watch it on a replay. I'm Melissa Prest, a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and the Foundation Dietitian for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. With me today is the lovely Vida, who is also a dietitian, and we worked together many moons ago through a dialysis company. So I'm super excited to have Vida here today to talk about her tips and tricks for managing chronic kidney disease and working with her patients. But I'll let Vida do a little intro for you so you can hear more about who she is. So Vida, I'll let you take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Vida Agyeman-Badu. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist as well. I currently work for Fresenius Kidney Care. So shout out to all my Fresenius friends who may be watching, and hopefully some of my patients as well. I'm so thrilled that Melissa invited me to do this. I've been wanting to volunteer forever, and this time allows me to do this, especially for Black History Month. So I'm so grateful to be here. I've been a renal dietitian for many years now, and I really enjoy working with patients on managing end-stage renal disease and also chronic kidney disease. So hopefully I can share some tips to help everyone watching.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I noticed you have a slow cooker book behind you, and I know there's some spices. I know we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I'm excited to hear about, you know, how you work with patients and your kind of tips. So, you know, kind of thinking about favorite kidney-friendly foods that I think a lot of people might say, oh, I can't eat this because it's on the do not eat list, or it's on a no list, but it's a cultural favorite food that they want to eat, or it's at a family celebration. So what are some of these foods that maybe people are like, I can't have this, but you know, you're like, no, we can work this into your diet?
So beans are my absolute one of my favorite kidney friendly foods. I have a bag of black beans here, and I also have some black-eyed peas here, and they're great source of protein and fiber. And a lot of people think they're on the do not eat list. Sometimes it's confusing, but you can absolutely eat beans. Just our recommendation for beans, potatoes also as well, sweet potatoes, yams, is that you soak them in a lot of water overnight, preferably if you have time. But if you're going to make them for dinner, for example, start your soaking in the morning, and then by the evening time, then some of the potassium that we're concerned about for our patients leaches out into the water. You rinse out the water, you boil it in a lot of water. You boil your beans in a lot of water or potatoes, and then you don't use the water that you boiled the food in, and that really reduces the amount of potassium. And then you can have your beans that are really a good source of protein and fiber, and incorporate that into your diet.
Yeah, and that's great. And I know we had a video a little while ago looking at different ways to make potatoes after we've soaked them, right? So you're, like you said, you soak them for a long time, yes. You drain that water, rinse them out, put clean water, boil, drain that, rinse it out, and then you can cook it. And that really does, like you said, help to kind of get that potassium out. But so, you know, you've done all that, we have less potassium, but what about like portion size? What are we still thinking of in terms of portion size of some of these foods?
Okay, so our recommendation for our patients is that you have no more than one high potassium food per day. So for vegetables, it's half a cup cooked, and or 1 cup uncooked. So for example, so if you have a high potassium food, for example, for beans, then that's that's not the day you might have your bananas and oranges as well. You kind of spread them out throughout the week.
Right. Yeah, and I think it matters too, right? Depending on if there's someone that's dealing with a lower potassium diet or kind of
Yes.
more of a flexible potassium diet, right? Because depending on what stage you're at, or even if you're on dialysis, I know I had patients on like a home dialysis more frequently, and they had low potassium. So
Yes.
it all, really does depend on the patient. But that's great
Yes.
advice, kind of that you can still include a high potassium food in your
Yes, you
your
can.
week. Yeah. Yeah.
And we
No.
encourage you to really work with your dietitian and your doctor, because like Melissa said, it's really lab specific, because some patients run, they just have a higher level of potassium. And we have a lot of patients also that the potassiums tend to be lower. And it's always. So we modify the diet where we say, okay, you can have the higher potassium foods, a lot more than the patient that runs a higher potassium level. So absolutely, just it depends on your individual labs.
So what tips and tricks do you have to make the kidney diet a little bit friendlier for people? I know that I get a lot of phone calls that come into the office, and people feel very overwhelmed. They have found all this different information on the website, or they've talked to their neighbor or their family member who's been, who's had kidney disease or has been on dialysis a long time ago, and it's overwhelming and confusing. And so, there's things that we kind of talk about to kind of calm some of that. But what are some of your tips and tricks to make the kidney diet friendly?
So one of the first things we go over with our patients, it's giving them a list of the foods that you're allowed to eat. In my experience, I found that when I tell patients you cannot eat all these foods, it's very, very depressing, and it's understandable. If someone told me to stop eating all the foods I grew up eating, I would be really depressed too. So we start by going over the foods that they're allowed to eat. And I encourage our patients to please do a grocery list and shop at a grocery store, and using the list of your allowed foods. And you can definitely also incorporate some of your cultural foods that you like to eat as well. But when you start with a grocery list and you have your pantry stocked with the list of your foods, you're more likely to follow the diet than if you have very little at home or nothing, and then you wake up guessing, what am I going to eat for breakfast or lunch or dinner?
Which I think is great advice for everybody, right? Like,
Yes.
like I'm guilty of that too. Like you're like, oh, I didn't make it. And then you're just like scrounging and you're like, I ate a lot, but I don't feel satisfied. So yeah. So I definitely like just being prepared, having things kind of planned out already. And I really like your approach of just let's focus on all the foods I can eat and bring that in my list. Cause it really is, for a lot of people, when they see the kidney diet, I think the biggest thing that hits them is all these foods are saying I can't eat them. Everything's excluded. I don't know what I'm supposed to be eating here. So I like that approach. And it's one that I like to take as well, of really focusing on like, let's start with what you like to eat. What can you eat? Because I would have a hard time giving up cheese. That would be so hard for me. So I get it. I think that's a great suggestions. So what are some ways to get families and caregivers involved in meal planning? I know for a lot of patients, they don't want to feel like they're a burden on anyone else. But it's always nice to get help, and it's always nice, especially if you're someone that's had a dialysis treatment and you're tired, to have a little help from your community of support, whoever that may be. So what are some ways to kind of get, good suggestions of saying, okay, here's how I can ask my family to help me with this, or maybe some things that someone could ask?
So I really like it when families are involved, and so I encourage our patients to invite their spouses or moms, dads, brothers, sisters, whoever is part of their support system, to come to dialysis or the doctor's appointments with them, because it's really nice when a family member can also learn about the diet, especially in the healthcare setting, where whether it's dialysis or the outpatient. You know, most dietitians, including myself, I love to educate family members and get them involved, because I know if a spouse or a family member is involved, patients will be more likely to follow the diet and be accountable. I can at least call the family member and say, can you tell me what's going on? So, and it's not just about the diet, but just including the family as also part of a healthy eating plan. It's not just the patient, but for the family, because we all can benefit from changing something that can help us be more healthy. And if you can involve the family and tell them that, okay, some of these tips that we're giving our patient is not just for the patient, it's for you too. You can benefit from a low sodium diet, because we all know hypertension is very common, in especially in our African American community, but it's very common in general in the United States. So everyone can benefit from learning some tips from a dietitian that can really help to improve our health.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's, I think it's one of those things too, is someone is dealing with a chronic illness and they have a special diet that's different from the family, right? If they don't necessarily have to follow a diet, I think that's just really sage advice to say, well, everyone can probably benefit from a few modifications, and we can do this together. And it builds in that support for the patient as well. And it is so great to have someone with you at appointments or, a meeting, because sometimes, I think as a patient, sometimes you're in a situation where it can provide fear and anxiety, and you may not hear everything,
right?
Or maybe the person with you hears it or can write it down, or even that person may have some information that you maybe forgot to share, or that you wanted to share, however that may be. So it's always great to have someone there as well to help you. But no, that's great. Words of wisdom and advice. And so we kind of talked a little bit about it, but thinking about how can we incorporate those cultural foods in the kidney diet? Are there specific cooking techniques, or maybe looking at the ingredients that we can make some changes on in the ingredients and still have a cultural food? So maybe instead of cooking something in a type of fat, we've changed the type of fat. But are there ways that we can make some healthy changes and still enjoy these cultural foods that are also okay in the kidney diet?
Yes. So using the healthy oils like canola oil, olive oils, those are ways to kind of improve the quality of the recipe. So also, I have behind me here a bunch of spices, and I'm not in no way promoting the brand. It's just this is some seasoning, all-purpose seasoning that I have here. I use seasonings a lot. I have some curry here. I'm not sure if you can see it.
I can see it.
Okay. Onion powder.
I love onion powder.
As you see, I have it's a big container. It's a 20 ounce. I get these in the family size because, let's face it, some spices, depending on where you go, they tend to be a little more expensive. But if you shop at, the stores where you can get family size items, you can get more bang for your buck. And so I'm sorry, this was onion powder. I love onions, and so when you don't have too much time to chop your onions, for example, if you're cooking in a hurry, you can, utilize your onion powder. I love black pepper. So black pepper, like when I'm baking chicken, or even in my bean recipe, when I'm doing chili, love chili powder. We don't cook without pepper. When I introduced myself, I didn't say I'm originally from Ghana, but I grew up here. I've been here many years, but we love chili peppers, and so you can incorporate lots of spices in your recipes, and that helps to reduce the amount of fat that you use. Also using lean meats in your recipes if you do eat meat, that will also really help kind of make your recipes more healthy. When it comes to beans, I make my beans more at like as a chili. I just have an example here. These are my black beans. It's hard to tell with it cooked, but my coworker will tell you, she says it tastes amazing.
So what's in it? What's in the black beans?
These are my black beans here. I start off by sauteing some onions, lots of onions in olive oil or canola oil.
Mhm.
And after my onions, I put my chili peppers in there, my chili powder.
Mhm.
Or if I have fresh ones, I like to use fresh as well. Then I add just a little bit of tomato sauce or tomato paste.
Mhm.
And then after that, I just a regular chili recipe. I love to use green peppers and celery. And then of course, you cook your beans ahead of time.
Right,
I
right.
know a lot of people don't like beans because, let's face it, it's hard to cook. It takes forever. But the soaking method is not just for reducing your potassium, but also it does really decrease the time it takes to cook your beans. So you can cook your beans like the day before if you don't have time. It's like, okay, I'll just cook the beans and then rinse it off and put it in the fridge. And then the following day, when you're in a hurry to, make your dinner or your lunch, then your beans, that's half the battle. And then you can so then you add your beans. Sorry, I went off on the tangent.
No, that's great. That's great.
You add you add your beans. I also use bay leaves. I grew
Okay.
up, we put it on in everything, just about. So I was one of those that didn't know bay leaves is like you can also crush it. It's crushed and added to lots of ground. Because I grew up only seeing the leaf.
I did too.
Until
Right. You just like put it in and you take it out at the end. And yeah. Yeah.
And then I started reading the label, and I found out that some crushed ground spices had bay leaves in there. I said, oh, so you see, guys, dietitians don't know everything. We learned. So that's kind of my bean kind of recipe. I wish we could do the actual demo where people could see it. But if you have like a favorite family recipe or your basic chili recipe, just modify it. Don't be afraid to take your favorite family recipe and incorporate things that might not be as healthy, and just removing some things that might be not as healthy and adding something else. Like, I know we tend to put a lot of some patients add smoked meats, smoke turkeys, and some porks or some other smoked meats to food. But one of the suggestions I tell patients is you can like bake your meats or grill, when you grill your meats, and adding them to like your greens or your beans or whatever you make, you will still get that smoke or meaty flavor, and it will be a way of reducing your sodium. And also, the smoked meats tend to have some nitrates and some other things that are not as healthy for us. So that's some of the suggestions I have for your recipes. And like I said, please work with your dietitians. Most dietitians I know like to cook and talk about food or find new recipes. I love cookbooks. I actually got this cookbook from a library. So they were having a sale. Some libraries once a year they have clearance. I guess
Mhm.
they clean out their libraries
Yep.
and you get books like for a quarter or 50 cents, $1, or sometimes it's fill a bag for $5. So I love looking at cookbooks for ideas. I love going to websites, the National Kidney Foundation, and our company has a website where we have tons of recipes for our patients. Um, so don't be afraid to look at a new recipe and try it out. And you'll be surprised some of the recipes may become your favorite foods.
Very, 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 very true. Yeah. And some of like the, those unhealthy, or not, I wouldn't say unhealthy, but like foods that we want you to have less of, and when you're like cooking, right? We've been talking about like cooking with healthier oils. But things like a stick margarine and butter, those tend to have higher saturated fat, which isn't so great for heart health, right? So we know actually this month is also heart health month. So, we want to make sure that we're, keeping our heart in mind as well, because of having kidney disease. There's that increased risk of heart disease and calcification of your arteries and veins. And so we do want to be mindful of that as well. So kind of choosing these healthier fats is one great way to reduce the amount of saturated fat that is in your diet. You get a little bit of it, but we want to make sure that you're kind of making swaps with these other, oils that Vida was talking about. It's interesting. So one of the things you had mentioned in your recipe was a little bit of tomato paste or tomato sauce, which a lot of patients like, I thought I couldn't have tomatoes, but I bring it up because some of the ways that we can also flavor our food with low sodium cooking is by incorporating some acids. So maybe lemon, lime, vinegars. Tomato is an acid, an acid producing vegetable. I don't know if producing is the right word, but it's more acidic. It's a more acidic vegetable, like our citrus fruits, things like that. So when you're reducing salt or not using salt in recipes, the herbs and spices, and then also incorporating some type of acid also helps to improve that flavor, which is already built into your recipes. So you've got the acid, you've got your spice mix in there. So that's awesome. And if you want to send me the recipe, we'll do like a cooking reel, so we can kind of do that cooking reel and show everyone Vida's black bean recipe.
Sure.
And we could totally highlight that. So that would be awesome. I'd love it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a question
to.
about like that with cooking. So with you may have mentioned greens and kind of changing like the meat that you're putting, or at least, kind of how you're cooking the meat. How would you encourage someone who is on a kidney diet to cook their greens? Like how would you have them steam it, or maybe cook it in a broth, or how would you kind of recommend that someone would cook their greens?
I would say like in talking to my patients, sometimes they get discouraged when I talk about changing the meats, but I say really try it out. And sometimes I encourage, well, don't use the same amount, just decrease the amount by maybe more than half, use a quarter, and replace it with low sodium vegetable broth, that adds a lot of flavor, or low sodium chicken or beef broth, or make your own at home, which is way cheaper. I don't know why the stores or these food companies charge so much.
It's very easy to make broth, right? It's not hard.
Something I had to say. So when you, especially around the holidays, when you want to buy broth to add to your stuff, your dressing or your stuffing or whatever food you're making, and it's like a box of broth is like $4, and I'm like, oh wow. But you buy it because it's the holidays and you want everything to be perfect. But
right.
on a daily basis, we all have food budgets, especially right now. everything is so expensive right now. So, but add in the broth, low sodium broths, or making your own, like when you bake your chicken in the oven, you save your broth. You can save your broth and skim the fat off it. And that can be something that adds flavor to your greens. Don't be, as I said, don't be afraid to use spices. And onions are one of the best spices. They're not just flavorful, but they're also healthy. It's a good source of fiber, right? We all need, there's such a focus on pre and probiotics, and it's like, you don't have to take the pill. It's really in the foods we eat if you just eat a balance of everything. So I can't say enough about just spices, but greens, yes, broth, you can be, sorry, I dropped my book.
Oh, you're fine.
Add in vegetable or broth, meat, chicken broth, low sodium, of course, and add in spices are an excellent way of cooking your grains and eliminating, or decreasing the sodium content. And as well as the fat, you can make up for all the flavor by using spices, because we add the fat for the flavor. But if you really decrease it and add the spices, you really will, you'll be really surprised as to what a difference it makes.
Did I lose you? Sorry, I was looking at the comments on Facebook and then I didn't hear you. I was like, oh no,
it's
I
okay.
lose her? So there was a comment that someone said they made their husband made their beans the same way before their husband had passed, and someone else was asking about contact info. So I will type in contact info in the comment box. And we've been kind of, my last question, we've been kind of talking about it throughout this live today, was what are some recommendations that you have for stocking a healthier kidney kitchen, or creating a healthier kidney kitchen? So I know you talked about the spices, you talked about like cookbook and grocery list, but are there any other tips to share, or maybe kind of summarizing like Vida's like top tips for keeping a healthy kidney kitchen?
Really, the top of my list is really just starting with the pantry. Just stocking up, whether you shop once a week or once every 2 weeks, just making sure you have your grocery list and you shop, and stock your pantry with your staples, your spices, because when you're stocked, when your fridge and your pantries are full, then you're not waking up going to buy breakfast, or thinking about what am I going to eat for lunch, and it really drains your budget when in that sense. So if you have a pantry, especially if you have a family, small or large, it's really, you save money by stocking up. And then one of the things I also do, I personally, is I watch a lot of cooking shows when I have time. My family laughs at me, but I always get ideas, and I actually record some of them, and then, because you can always incorporate some tips into your own recipes, or I just learn new recipes. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know about this spice. I didn't know I can use like fennel. It's one vegetable I think I learned from watching cooking shows, so that's one of the things I do too. Besides the cookbooks, I think cooking shows are more interesting than when you read cookbooks. So that's where we all have access to cooking shows. Channel, the public station, can I say the channel? WTTW, they have lots of cooking shows on weekends, especially the public TV stations have a lot of cooking shows, but that's some of the recommendations I have. And just also just something real practical. I don't know how many people buy newspapers now, but also go on the website. We don't need newspapers anymore. I forgot.
I still get one every Sunday. I still get the Sunday paper. I know. I'm old school, but I still get it.
we only get the Sunday. So we have the weekly sales for the grocery stores. That's where you can really get more bang for your buck. Shop sales. When eating healthy can be expensive, but you'd be surprised where eating healthy and on a planned budget, where you're shopping for your staples and cooking more at home, will also save you more money than if you eat like one out every day or twice a day. When you do the math, it really does save money by just doing your grocery shopping and cooking at home. And then we're healthier when we make our own foods, because chances are you're more likely to kind of eat more healthier when you're preparing your foods at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're on a limited budget, I've gone to more of like a discount grocer or even like a dollar store, and I've found salt-free spice mixes there, dried pasta, oatmeal. So I have found all these in more of the affordable grocery stores. And I know a lot of times if you're someone that maybe shops more in or goes to more of a food pantry, I know a lot of times there are a lot of healthy options as well, depending on what food pantry you're at and the options there. So there's definitely healthy options for you at all over. It's just kind of being, like you said, smart about how you're shopping and looking at either some of the sale papers and just perusing the aisles and seeing what's available there.
So I wanted to show you that I got these black beans are from the dollar store.
See, there you go.
I was amazed when I saw it, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
So Melissa's right. A lot of these stores, dollar stores now, they have a stock of foods. They have grocery aisles now.
Yep.
So you can really get more for your money and I say don't patronize just one store. Shop around, because you can spread your food dollar that way. So you always have sales at all different stores and compare prices. And thanks to the internet, you can go to the stores and check. You don't have to just physically go there. Even you can compare the prices and see.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let me double check and make sure that there's no other questions at the moment. I will, like I said, I will answer in the one that was in here. But I do appreciate you joining us today and sharing all this. It was super fun. This was our first in our, we'll do 6 more of these throughout the year, but this was our first of 6. And so thank you for being our first guest on our Facebook Live to talk about this. And yeah, so thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to everyone, and I hope I've provided you with information that will really help you and your family on your journey to good health.
I think you absolutely
we can do this again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you all join us next time. We'll do something next month. It's National Kidney Month, National Nutrition Month. So lots of great stuff to talk about then. So thank you again, Vida.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay.